Resistance, burnout, procrastination, sleepless nights, stress, and painful hard work. Fatigued from running on the high achiever hamster wheel? This is the Bold Leadership Revolution, where we develop high-performing leaders to live, thrive, and lead bold and smart, not hard. Here is Tara Newman and co-host Joe Gifford.
Hello, and welcome to the Bold Leadership Revolution podcast, episode 12. This is our final episode for season 1, and today we are talking about my 2017 lessons learned, and I have my lovely co-host Joe Gifford back with us today. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Tara.
And we're going to dive in today to my 2017 lessons learned. We're going to talk a little bit about the process that I have for reflection. We're going to talk about some overall insights, and then I'm going to give you 8 lessons learned this year. It's been an exciting year over here at the Bold Leadership Revolution headquarters, Joe.
Hasn't it? It's gone crazy in an amazing way.
Yeah. And I love at the end of the year capturing my lessons learned. I think it's so important for leaders to be looking at this on a regular basis. And it is part of my weekly reflection routine or ritual where I sit down and I look at my week and I ask myself some questions, and I look at one of those questions is, what were my lessons learned? It's so easy to forget them, to at the end of the year only remember the most recent ones, and to really miss all the goodness that has come out of a year. And even if, what I kind of like too is, even if you've had obstacles or challenges, those are like often the opportunities to have the best lessons.
Yeah, the hidden lessons often, aren't they? When you reflect and you unpack them, there's so much there.
There is. And for once on an episode where you and I are on, I actually have a lot of notes in front of me. So I don't forget anything really, really good. And so I do want to say that quick reflection tip. I think we talk about this in another episode, but at the end of the year, when you're reflecting on your lessons learned, you can always ask yourself 4 really easy questions. What worked? What didn't work? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? And then you can add the 5th one where you specifically are looking at what are the lessons that you've learned, and make sure that you look at them from the aspect of what were the obstacles you faced that gave you the greatest lessons.
That's so powerful.
So this year has been a breakthrough year. This year was I call this year the year of non-resistance, Joe.
Why are you calling it that?
Because I have often said that I am one of the most resistant people I know. That's often why my clients come to me, because they're in resistance, and it's like we just seek our own. And for the first time in this, I'm wrapping up year 3 of my business. And this was the year that I've had the least amount of resistance to things and didn't spend a ton of energy or time resisting the changes that were coming my way.
I happen to know that you're in massive resistance to doing your podcast.
I'm in massive resistance to doing my podcast. Not.
You were.
Oh, well, when we started, I had to take a week. In fairness, I did have some resistance, but I actually moved through it really quickly. And we talk about that in the behind the scenes episode.
We do.
Where I sat down and I wrote that massive list of things that I was afraid of.
I love how you did that.
And went through it, and I allowed myself the time to process it instead of sitting in the friction of trying to take action from a place of resistance.
So if we're feeling resistance, how does that show up? How can we check in and realize that, actually I'm resisting that?
I feel it in my body.
Okay.
Where do you feel it in your body?
I'm quite often in resistance to feeling resistance. And I don't often realize that I'm in resistance about something. I notice that I'm in resistance if I'm procrastinating, or if I am not being productive, or I don't feel creative. But when you say feel it in your body, I guess I feel, the image that kind of comes to mind is that I just feel kind of tight and just, you know?
Closed off. I feel closed off. I'm getting triggered by things way more than I should be. That's always a really interesting sign, because it's usually a sign that I'm not taking action. I'm really way too obsessed with my email and my Facebook feed. If I'm in resistance, that's my addiction to my numbing.
So yeah, if we're like scrolling through Instagram or Facebook mindlessly, which is fine for like a few minutes a day and you want to chill out and, see what's going on. But if you just notice that you're there all the time, you haven't got direction, it's not intentional, probably in resistance to something.
Yeah. Like I noticed like the things that are most important tend to sit on my to-do list a little longer.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even say my to-do list. I don't really have a to-do list, but like that they just kind of linger a little longer than they should. But so this year was the year of non-resistance for the most part.
That's amazing.
This was the year that things there, when I start talking about the things that landed for me this year, and the lessons that I learned this year, my lessons are complete when there's a full body knowing.
Okay.
So a lot of times my clients and I will talk about something and they'll say to me, yeah, I know it intellectually, but I don't know it here. And they put their hand on their heart.
Yes.
Right? Like you can know something intellectually and still not be able to what I call embody it. And so when I talk about my lessons learned, they come from a place of deep inner knowing and embodiment.
Wow.
And I think that that's something that there are a lot of people out there sharing content, sharing lessons. We've got tons of blogs and YouTubers and social media advice going on. And I think that you have to really check in and see if this is coming from somebody who knows this intellectually or has the integrity to only teach it when it comes from a place of embodiment. Mm-hmm. And that in itself is integrity in my book. Like when you can embody something.
How can we check if someone is embodying something, truly embodying something? If we're taking advice from someone, how can we just go, right, okay, just want to, for my own integrity, make sure that this person embodies everything they are saying?
I think, and this wasn't the intent, wasn't to call people
no.
or in this episode. I was just kind of speaking to it from like where I teach from is from a place of embodiment. And I think that people put a lot of stuff out there and there's an energy behind what they're putting out. And I'm highly sensitive to other people's energy. And most of my clients and community, whether they realize it or not, are also highly sensitive to energetic frequencies and what people are putting out there.
Okay.
And if you kind of know, right, and you have to be open to listening to everything that they're sharing and ask questions. And especially if you're looking at somebody in terms of wanting to work with them as a coach, as a consultant, as a business owner, you want to just make sure that they really are in integrity with their message, that you haven't found them commenting on somebody else's Facebook thread about something that they specifically speak differently about in their messaging.
Right. Yeah.
Just things like that.
Cool. Got it.
Which you can find a lot of that out there. So this year was a year of massive growth for my business. Revenue is way up. I had about, as of now, and the year is not over, I've had about 167% growth.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. And I'm going to talk about these lessons really go into what has made that possible. Profit is way up. My freedom is way up. And the level of joy and excitement that I'm experiencing in running my business is way up.
Oh, I love that one the most, I think, the joy and excitement metric.
Yes. And it's really interesting because there are people out there who only look at tangible metrics like numbers, like dollars and cents and followers and likes and whatever. But there is a whole host of metrics that you can be looking at that are intangible. And there is a way that you can make them more tangible. Okay. And so I love when I talk to my clients and they want to have metrics like happiness or joy or just kind of a different level of impact that goes beyond a hard number.
That's a huge one, isn't it? Because, my clients, if we're, measuring their metrics, there'll be, the kind of increase in readers, increase in followers or lists or whatever, but also how confident do you feel in your message? And, so confidence and joy are such, they're so important. And we can feel so successful through an increase in those because that's actually where a lot of success is. It's in feeling amazing.
And it's important to me to measure these things and to have a growth experience that feels good because you can grow your business and it can feel like crap. I've worked with people who have done it. I've at points in my business have been growing my business and it didn't feel good. And I've had to make changes. But this year was really just a joy. And, I want everybody to experience growth like this. That's part of my mission. I want everybody to experience how good growing a business and succeeding at your leadership and your work can feel.
Oh, for the record, I'm grinning with a huge grin right now because that just gave me all the feels. That is what leadership is. It's just so amazing to know that you're growing, a life and a business and leading in your life and business that lets you have all the feels and joy.
Yeah. So a couple of things I've noticed, just overall insights about myself when I've been reflecting back on me and my growth and my experience this year, is I've noticed I've become even more habitual than I've been in the past, more habit driven. It's not about my potential. It's about my performance every day. Because the reality is I sent a newsletter like this once where I was like, I don't give a shit about your potential. Because unless you can perform your best every day, you will never reach that potential. It is irrelevant. And in a lot of cases, your potential is irrelevant. So, for me, it was really sinking into my performance and making sure that I wasn't getting wrapped up in and distracted by my potential.
Do you know what, Tara? I love that. I have been stuck in that place for such a long time, rationalizing my potential. But when you say it on a performance level every day, it's tiny actions and that's doable then. You reach it. Whereas if you stay in your head with all the things you're capable of doing, that doesn't actually get it done.
The other thing about this year I've noticed is that my energy management is probably the best it's ever been. I've been ruthless with my boundaries.
Yay.
And that is okay. I'm giving you all permission to be ruthless with your boundaries.
I'm going to run with that one. Print it out on a big poster.
The other thing for me is that I've really been stepping out of my stories so I can do the real mindset work around rewiring my belief systems and interrupting the patterns more quickly and kind of being relentless about that. And I think that when we're looking at mindset work, it's very easy to get stuck in our heads and get stuck in the story. Like you see the story and then you're like, I have awareness around this story, but now I don't know what to do about it. So I kind of I know it's my story. I know this is coming up. It's my sabotage. Here's the story again. Yeah. But really learning how to step out of that story and leave it behind so that you can just move on to new beliefs and taking action. So that was something that's really kind of shifted for me as well. I've stuck to my critical few. Mm-hmm. I know what they are. I've mastered them. I believe in them. I stick to them.
You got them down.
And I hired the right people to handle everything else.
Yeah.
That would be you.
That'd be me.
I've invested more in myself this year than ever before. And we talk about how to invest in yourself with greater confidence in an earlier episode. I think it's episode either 9 or 11. Now I can't remember which one, but we can link to it in the show notes. But when I look at what I've invested in myself this year, each year I progressively increase the amount of money that I'm investing in myself. And I feel that that has really paid off. I think the other thing that I can say is that this was the year that I really got on mission and went beyond the money.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
So I think the way to the greatest, to creating more wealth in the world is not to focus on the money. It's to focus on what you can do with that wealth and what is your greater mission, and to put your mission over the money. Or I think Zig Ziglar said, you can have everything in life you want if you help enough people, if you help enough other people get what they want. Right. And so for me, it was really, that what comes back to that whole, I know this intellectually versus I know this from a place where I can embody it, and really being able to release attachment to money and to really go beyond it and what it can do in the world to further my purpose.
And what I love is hearing that one, but also hearing the metric earlier on. Well, actually the 2 metrics earlier on, that you are at 167% growth and you're experiencing more joy. And I love how they all work in concert together.
Yeah. And I always get tangled up here. And I know a lot of people do too. It's like sometimes talking about money makes us feel icky. because that's kind of the way we've been programmed in the world, especially women. We haven't been given the language for money. We haven't been empowered around money. And, there really isn't female empowerment without having financial empowerment. Right. And so really kind of being able to have the money conversation, but also, and know that as entrepreneurs or as leaders in any business, it's our job to make money. As an entrepreneur, it is your job to make money. You are a commissioned salesperson when you are an entrepreneur. But making money doesn't have to come from a place of greedy or icky or any of those things. And you can give to yourself financially and be okay. And that's not greedy. And you can give to others. And so for me, it's really been about feeling secure in my own being, right? Like security isn't, so many of us are looking for financial safety and security, and that's a mindset.
Yeah. And that's something that I'm going to quite happily be vulnerable here and say that's been a massive lesson for me too recently, isn't it? And that, and you said to me recently that my energy has changed around success and money, which I have a trust and I have a mindset that's different, which is really helping. Like, I'm embodying that rational thing, which I knew was possible. And it feels so different. It's huge.
Yeah. So for me, getting on mission and putting my mission before money, it was really something that I had some self-awareness around. So should we jump into some lessons?
Let's go. I'm loving it.
Okay. Lesson 1, everything is an evolution. There is no there. And when you realize this, what I found is you grip less tightly to things, that it's less attachment to winning and more winning.
Okay, so it's more about growth. It's more about feeling that those changes in those areas of growth rather than thinking when I get to X amount of revenue or a certain weight or a certain level of achievement, I am there.
Yeah, and where this came from me was around my messaging and how I talk about what I do.
Okay.
Right. Like, so for me in the years past, I was always like, oh, I don't know how to talk about what I do. I don't know how to communicate this in a way that demonstrates the results I get people. I don't know how to talk about this in a way that is engaging to people. And really that was just a story that I had to step out of and leave behind, because people message me all the time saying like, I think you're in my head and that's so me. And obviously I do communicate the results I get for people because people continue to hire me. So this was something that I've really had to realize that your message is never going to be perfect. Like there's always going to be something that you can tweak or test or shift or add or delete.
Totally.
And that there's never, so for me, this really came around my messaging. And so there's no real like arrival. There's no real destination when it came to my message that, this is an evolution that ebbs and flows as my business ebbs and flows. And there's a lot of things in business that are like that.
And that feels so much more expansive than setting a goal or a milestone and hitting it and ticking it off and knowing that, okay, we've done that. Next, this is a test, tweak, refine, grow, evolve, ebb, flow.
Yeah. And so the question for me became like, what would you say if you knew you couldn't get it wrong? Right? If everything you said, if you just trusted, self-trust, if you just trusted that everything you said was going to resonate with the right person at the right time, and that everybody gets what they need when they need it.
Yeah.
So it's an evolution, and there's a balance of incremental gains and well-timed leaps.
Yeah.
So that was my first lesson. My second lesson was around desire and wanting more, because so I had a tagline in the first year of my business that said, people who want more come here to get it. And we revisited that tagline this year, because when it was first written and I first had it done, it didn't feel good to me. It didn't resonate with me. Because I struggle with wanting more, and I struggle with desiring more and feeling like, but I have so much already. And yet whenever my clients come to me, it's always about the more that they want.
So that was your story influencing how you viewed that tagline.
Yeah. So my clients were always, when people come to me, they're like, well, I want more freedom and I want more joy and I want more ease and I want more money and I want more impact.
Yeah.
Or I want more of this type of client. So I want more influence, it's always about the more that they want. So I finally the lesson this year was that wanting more isn't the problem, that being hungry is actually good. It keeps you leaning into your edge. And, this was really a lesson that I took away from CrossFit this year.
And hasn't CrossFit been huge for you for so many things?
Yeah, it's been a really big metaphor for life, for business, for performance, and as it should be.
And for awesome shoulders as well, to be fair.
And for awesome shoulders. Yes, I'm loving my shoulders these days. So for me, that really came from CrossFit, and showing up and wanting to be a better athlete and wanting to be able to gain strength and wanting more strength and wanting more mobility and wanting to do the more complicated movements and wanting more out of myself and experience as an athlete and having that hunger for that.
What I see is that, where you've wanted more at each stage as well, it doesn't negate where you already are. Because you are showing up, you are literally doing the work, and every day you're showing up as an incremental action of success. And it doesn't mean that, because you want to lift, I don't know how much you lift now, a certain amount over there, it doesn't mean that you've failed up until you get to that point.
Yeah. And I think that, again, like the hustle that I talk about in episode 4, Do the Work, it's the energy in which you bring to the desire.
Mm-hmm.
And when I show up wanting more in CrossFit, I have to check in. Because do I want more because I'm feeling not good enough as an athlete? Is my hunger coming from a place of not good enough or a place of fear of failure or, fear of not being worthy? Is it ego driven? So when the wanting is coming from that place, it's always a good opportunity because sometimes it does. I'm not immune to this. It's the human condition. We all have it. So it's good for me to check in until I look at where that hunger and desire is coming from. But it's not wrong to have it when it's coming from the right place.
And, we can check in with ourselves, can't we? And recognize that desire is coming from the wrong place with how it feels. If you feel less than or not enough, all those emotions and feelings which aren't aligned with joy and growth and expansion and all that stuff, then it's that's probably coming from the wrong energy.
Yeah. If I'm looking over to the side of me to see how fast somebody else is going or how much they're lifting, that is a clear indication that I'm in trouble. That my blinders need to be up and on, and it needs to be about my performance and nobody else's performance. And I am my only competitor. Yeah. So I know that if I start to fall into comparing myself to somebody else or any of that kind of energy, that's coming from the wrong place and that I need to check in. And it's interesting because in CrossFit, we have an app and you go into the app and you log into your class and you can record your performance history because it's good to record your performance. It's good to look at your revenue and it's good to look at your web statistics and your social media statistics because what you track improves. It's good to track how much weight you can lift on a certain exercise or how fast you went on a specific Metcon. But when you log it, it goes up on the whiteboard where you can see everybody else's performance as well.
Oh, which is fine. If I was to think about business, I'd go, ooh, that triggers me.
Yeah. So, and then if you complete a workout for non-CrossFitters, if you complete a workout as it's been prescribed, you get to click in this app a blue button that says you have RX'd the workout. So what was starting to happen for me was that I was starting to be able to RX some workouts. So I was pushing the blue button. And then if I hit a workout that I didn't RX and I couldn't push the blue button, I was making that mean something about me. Right. And I was becoming addicted like Pavlov's. Pushing the blue button, right? So it's always a check-in. There's always a check-in. So if I'm putting my scores up and I'm comparing myself to somebody else, or I'm thinking I didn't do good enough, then I need to check in. If that blue button is becoming a little too exciting to me, I need to check in. And sometimes that means that I go and record my workouts somewhere else and I don't even go into that app. So the desire isn't the problem. The being hungry isn't the problem. It's the energy in which you're coming from that needs to be looked at.
That blue button is such a strong visual. I'd love to hear what the listeners and the audience right now have identified as their blue button. What's your thing?
Good question.
Right. That's such a strong visual. What's the blue button that is driving you insane right now?
Yeah, that you're kind of addicted to, but for good reason. So number 3, my third lesson is growth is messy, uncomfortable, and comes with challenges. And it's also beautiful, expansive, and exciting.
Oh, I love those two sides to that.
growth isn't either or, it's and. And there is nothing wrong with you if your growth is ugly and messy and uncomfortable and chaotic.
And there's ugly crying going on and all sorts of things.
And it's also the piece of it that is beautiful and expansive and exciting, and knowing that you're kind of unfurling into this new version of yourself, this new leader with more strength and resilience through the process.
Do you think we expect it to be beautiful and all sunshine and roses?
I think that people expect it to be sunshine and roses.
Instagram friendly.
Oh, yeah, totally. Instagram worthy business growth. And what nobody sees is how messy and heart wrenching and gut wrenching at times it can be, and what a test it is. And that's normal. It's normal. So if your growth is feeling messy and anything like that, it's normal.
And I think that goes back to the comparisonitis, doesn't it? That when we do see Instagram-friendly versions of people's lives, whether it's through speech they're creating that projection, or whether it's social media or whatever it is, we can get in our own heads and think that they have it all so perfect organized.
Listen, we all would love to see everybody's messy moments as they're happening, but I'm so grateful when people don't do that, because it's hard to teach from within the mess. It's hard to share from within the struggle. And it's confusing when you're watching on and you're watching the bleeding.
Oh gosh, yes.
Right? It's confusing for somebody. I've seen people do that. Right? And it's confusing. And so what I like to do is I like to keep it real on social media. I do try and keep it real as much as possible. But if I'm going through something that is particularly messy, I'm going to share it once I'm through it, so I can give you some lessons learned from a different place. I'm going to share the scar, not the wound.
Oh, nice. I like that.
That is not my quote. That is somebody else's quote. I will not take credit for it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going to come from. So there have been times in my business, like this year, I built a lot of team, but there have been times in my business where I've let all my team go. And I've gone it alone because I needed to recalibrate, and things had shifted and changed so much that I wasn't even sure what needed to be done in the business. And I needed everybody to go away for a bit while I sat in the process and the operating procedures and the roles, and I wore the different hats. So I knew exactly what I needed to hire in. Right. And that's messy and that's uncomfortable and balls were dropping, but I got to really see it for what it was.
Right. And so when you have the clarity and the reflection and you've done the review, that's the moment to be vulnerable, not while you're in the mess.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't, while I was going through it, I wasn't like, oh my God, the wheels are coming off the bus.
Right. Because,
because also I wasn't planning on panicking through the discomfort. Like I wasn't panicking. It was just really horribly uncomfortable because I was doing a lot more work than I needed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure what work actually needed to be done. And I needed to sort through it. And it was messy, but
just knowing that everyone's wheels come off the bus, there's wheels all over the goddamn road. It's all right.
Yeah. And I mean, John and I, in John's business, and I'm not going to talk about his business on the podcast because it's not my place to do that, but even in his business, he experiences things and it affects me and it affects the way I lead in my business. And, he's in a tremendous change cycle after changing things in his business processes in his business and the way he does things in his business after 30 something years of being in business. It was a family business and things are really chaotic over there. And it's just normal. It's normal, people. It's okay. It's okay. I think at least once every few months, I've got a client who is like thinking that they're not doing it the right way because it's a bit of a shit show. The shit show is normal. Can we Insta that?
The shit show is normal. Yeah, definitely.
You can quote me on that. So
hashtag the shit show. That's going to be appearing in your social media quotes as an image, Tara Newman.
Okay. So the fourth thing that I learned this year was discernment plus intention equals productivity.
Oh, nice.
So my definition of productivity has always been along the lines of not doing all the things, but doing the right things so that I have more time and energy and money and freedom for the things that I love and the people that I love.
Mm.
Right. And for me this year, there's been a lot of discernment, a lot of choosing to walk away from things that are good so I could step into things that are great. And there's been intention behind pretty much every single action I take, which is also something that I learned from CrossFit.
Mm. Okay.
So, I learned it from CrossFit from the sense that when I go into a workout, I'm really intentional about what the purpose of that workout is.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm training 4 to 5 days a week, it's training me to be intentional with every workout. So I definitely took that away from my experience with CrossFit. Because if you're not intentional going into a workout, it's very easy for you to let somebody else's energy affect your workout, or to let somebody else's goal or desire affect your workout, or let your ego come into the workout. So it's been important for me to be very clear on what my intention is for each workout, especially considering that I still live with adrenal issues, and that I still live, in my opinion, with some level of adrenal fatigue, and that I am not like everybody else. I can't push myself always the way others do. I don't think they should be pushing themselves that way either, because adrenal burnout.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little opinionated about that. So that's something that I really picked up again from CrossFit, is that bringing that intentionality to everything that I do, and to really think about things from what is the outcome that I want to get from that experience.
And also just layer up with that one, because my sort of metaphor for that is going to kettlebells, my kettlebell class, and I'm not as badass as you yet with your CrossFit, but I often have to modify the HIIT circuits with the kettlebells depending on what my body needs at that moment in time. So because adrenal burnout, right? And so whether you're modifying something in your life or business because that's where you need to be right now, but you're still moving forward, like I still know that I'm going to come back with the muscle groups worked, with my energy intact to carry on and lead in my business and my family, but I'm making those moves my way with no judgment from me or my instructor or my class members. It's just, I'm adjusting it.
Yeah, I think that's great, because that speaks so much to authenticity. And like people like, oh, but the word authentic is so overused. It's not, in my opinion. We should all still strive to be authentic, but that's how to do it. Right? Yeah. Is to know what you need in that moment, and for you to take a stand for that.
Although actually, and that does speak to so much as well, because I have been to classes and groups where I've stated my boundary around what I'm capable of doing. And I know my body, I know how much I'm able to push on any given day, in any given hour, on any given day. And yes, in exercise and self-improvement, we can always push a little bit more, as we can in business, as we can in personal development. But the effects will be really actually detrimental. And, so I had to find the right environment for me to go where, my mentor, my instructor was supportive, where I knew that I could show up fully as myself in integrity and with authenticity, with no judgment, no kind of like, oh, but really you're going to be able to do this, 5 times more. But well, no, because I'm going to leave now, if that's the case.
Yes. And that actually was something else that I learned this year from CrossFit that I didn't actually, and that applied to my business that I didn't put down, but that you push when you feel the pull.
Oh.
So you push when you feel the pull. You don't pull. You don't push to find the pull.
Okay.
So when there's a workout that I'm really like, that's really energizing to me, that I really like, that, really speaks to me. And maybe I don't even like it, but like, I have the energy that day and it feels good to push, right? I'm being pulled to push.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm feeling there's a pull there, and my body's saying, this feels good. It's okay to push.
Yes.
Right. But if I'm pushing to find the pull, that's a no-go. If I just push harder, then I'm going to feel pulled. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right. So my 5th lesson, and remember, these are things that I might have known intellectually, but I've had to really internalize and embody. So trust the process.
Oh.
Right. We know this one intellectually. This was a huge one that came up during my husband's training for Ironman, especially towards the end of his training when he started wondering if he's done enough to hit the goal that he wanted to hit. Other people are training this way, but his coach has him training that way. Is that way the right way? Right? Like trusting the plan, trusting the process. And for me this year, it really just hit home for me that what I'm doing is working. Continue doing it. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry about trying this new thing over here. Just keep doing what's working. Trust the process. It's working. And I think so many people don't have the patience to stick with it because that's tedious and boring at times. It's tedious. It's boring. It's not sexy. It's not always new and exciting. But if it's working, stick with it. Trust it. Trust the process. Keep doing it until it proves itself that it's not working. And that may eventually happen. And that's why we really get into reflection and strategic review process on a quarterly basis as business owners or as leaders, because we need to have our finger on the pulse of what's working and what's not working and know what we can change and what we need to trust and continue doing.
Because if you are being reactive as opposed to proactive, you don't have the space and the data in a way to look back and go, right, that worked, that didn't work. We can bin that, we can expand on that. If you're constantly in shiny object or syndrome mode or in reaction mode, you're not getting the traction there, are you? Yeah.
The sixth one was I finally understood what my value was. And my superpowers. And it's not always what I think it is. And it's changed everything.
Okay. I want to hear more about that.
And this was the year that I started to embody my value. So we all have value. We are all worthy. We are all enough. I'm just putting that out there. We all have our own superpowers and that make us unique. And that's our value. And what happens is that usually the things that are our superpowers and our value come so easily to us that we don't believe that that's actually our value or our power.
Oh gosh, that's been a big lesson for me this year as well, Tara Newman. Because if you're in your zone of genius, it just feels so easy that you don't recognize it as being a zone of genius.
Right. And then we just muck it up with all
Yeah.
And so I'm goal driven. I understand how to set goals. I understand how to achieve goals. I understand how to get results that matter for myself and others. I know people often better than they know themselves, and I can very easily and quickly see what they need to develop so they can grow and step into the vision that they have for themselves. I very easily see when people lack confidence, and I know how to build up that confidence in them. I operate from a place of confidence. Even when I struggle with my confidence, I can get myself back into a more confident place. It's the language that I speak. So if we're talking about the Sally Hogshead assessment, How to Fascinate, I speak the language of power. I speak the language of prestige, which is the language of confidence is power and prestige is excellence. So I understand when people come to me and they want to raise the bar.
Yeah.
I raise the bar. I take a stand for building things that are world-class, that are excellent. And I do this through my coaching. And I'm a powerful coach because I have great listening skills and I ask powerful questions. And so I will add, our energy is always our value. And I am meticulous. As an advanced Reiki practitioner, I am meticulous about my energy. And so these are some of the ways that I add value. And I don't actually have to do anything to add value. I just am that value.
Okay. But realizing that, so if anyone's listening and they're thinking, well, I'm really good at this, but it doesn't feel like it's valuable enough. It's valuable, incredibly valuable to other people who need what you have, who need that.
And so an example of me embodying this value is when I onboard my clients.
Okay.
They come in, it's a very organized way in which they come in. They get a welcome workbook. They get an FAQ sheet on how best to work with me. They get a client check-in form to hold them accountable, because that is also something that is my strength, is holding people accountable. And it's all delivered through my VA. They have somebody who is a dedicated resource to them, helping them schedule their appointments with me, handling any kind of invoicing issues. And it looks really pretty when they get it. right? Because that's that excellence. That's the thing that my clients value. And so I don't actually have to do anything differently, but my processes convey my value. And that's the way that I just know, like, right? And so when people come through my onboarding process, they've already have had a result. They've already experienced value. If they're a busy executive or entrepreneur and they know that they can just email my VA with a time change or a date change for a session, when they know there's a dedicated resource to help them with any kind of invoicing or payments or anything like that, that's a value. Seeing the process in itself has gotten people results. Like before I've even met with a client for our first session, they've hired a VA and have copied my process.
Because you've modeled it.
Because they realized that was something they needed. The workbook itself usually creates a tremendous amount of insight and reflection for people that they haven't done on their own in a long time or at all. So that is my value, my superpowers. And it's interesting because what I realized even most recently is that sometimes people they'll want to, like people say, I want to pick your brain. I don't necessarily, I do get some people who say they want to pick my brain, which obviously I have a boundary around that. But some people really want me to listen to them and ask them a good question, but that's my value. So you have to pay me for that.
Yeah.
Or I have to be really clear that I'm giving away something of mine that is highly valuable.
Yeah.
And it depends on in the situation if I'll do that. Like obviously if I'm at a networking event and I'm talking to people and I'm listening to them, right? I'm not going to be like, now you all need to pay me for being at this networking event, right? But people who want my ear on their business or people who want me to give them some advice or ask them some good questions, I used to just give that away because I didn't even realize that was my value.
And by doing that, you can't embody your value of prestige and excellence because the other person can't get the result that you would normally get because it's out of alignment, it's out of scope, it's out of all those things.
Yes. Yeah. So that really, I just do that so naturally that I didn't think anything of it. And then I was like, oh, wait, but that's my value, right? So it's okay that it comes naturally to you and it's okay to charge for it if it's something that you're really good at and it gets a result. So that was the lesson around what my value is and what my superpowers are and some of those things. The seventh one is lead from the aspiration.
Oh,
lead from the vision.
So are you, I have to unpack that one for me.
So as a leader, you have to be in the now and you have to have your eye on the vision. And your job is to know how to bridge that gap.
Right.
And so what I think winds up happening is that for the most part, people get stuck in the now, in the urgent, what's happening today, the reactive, and not leading from the aspiration. This is acting as if, right? When you lead from the aspiration. So on a number of occasions this year, I've had to step out of my business so I could step back into it from the aspiration. And it's literally like a mental game for me. I'm like, okay, I'm putting down the hat of this level business owner because these are the things that you do at this level. And these are the things that I am doing. But if I want to get to this other level over here, I need to be doing those things.
And to be clear, so leading from the aspiration is not faking it until you make it, right?
No. Okay,
I know.
Let me tell you something. To lead from the aspiration takes guts. It takes guts. I was going to say something else, but we'll stick with guts. Okay. So a great example in my business is when I decided that I was going to hire you. And I was going to lead this business from a place where, and when I rebranded from Tara Newman Coaching to the Bold Leadership Revolution, and it was no longer about me, and it was about this bigger thing, this stand I was taking for leaders everywhere to stand in a more bold and confident place, and what I needed to create to help them get to where they needed to be, and what I needed to do in my business to do that. And if I'm going to be running $1 million or a multi-million-dollar business in the next 5 to 10 years, how do I step into that $1 million CEO or multi-million-dollar CEO level? What would I do? I would sit down and create the org chart. I would sit down and look at who I needed to get to that spot. I would sit down and write the role descriptions of who was going to fill those things. I was going to realize that I can't do it alone. And you know what? that took a financial investment that was well outside of my comfort zone. That took a financial investment that was beyond where I was. Like, it was a gamble to do this. It was a risk to do this. That's why it takes guts. And it comes up a lot for my clients when they're hiring team. And do you hire for today or do you hire for tomorrow? And hiring for tomorrow might cost you a little more than hiring for today. But how do we make that happen? Where do we need to dip into the other expenses to make some adjustments? How are you going to fund this leap? And know that it's going to feel like, it felt like it was like in my throat, like it was stuck when I first did this. And then I went out and I booked a tremendous amount of business.
You really did. Yeah.
Right? Because I'm now showing up differently. Sometimes you have to put the heat on.
Right. And, to share from the other side of the coin, right? So I was also in resistance to me having a content agency team, which I hadn't even seen because I was in resistance to that for so long. And when I stepped up as a leader to be with you in your business, I then realized that for me to do that step was my big, sort of trust and get my team together and put it all together. So we were both on this, on this big kind of like growth curve, which meant a lot of tears and a lot of all the feels from us both. And that's the other thing, isn't it? When you step up in your leadership, it has a knock-on effect to all around you.
Yeah, ripple effect. So that's kind of what leading from the aspiration looked like for me was you're almost putting the cart before the horse, right? But you're not doing it in a way that you're taking risk, but from a responsible, conscious.
Okay, ethical, so you're not vulnerable, you're not putting yourself at risk. And as we see people do sometimes in a way that's concerning, maybe.
Yeah. And I think that you and I even had a conversation around like, we're going to try this. And like, obviously, if I couldn't make it work, then we were going to need to have another conversation. So
totally,
there's being upfront about it. And if you try it and you don't make it, like what happens then? Like, how do you know when you might need to pull back the aspiration because you pushed too far or something?
Yeah. But all of that is around openness and integrity and working with the right people as well, isn't it? You're playing into the bigger game and you're staying open, you're staying flexible, you're staying expansive.
And then my 8th and final lesson is learning to love the no. And this isn't necessarily me saying no. This is loving when other people say no.
Oh, okay.
So when we're in business, when we're selling things, which we all are, if we're in any business, if you're a leader in somebody else's company, you might be in a sales role, or you might be in an internal role where you're selling an idea or a concept or a budget or a project or something, right? We're all selling something in this world, and learning to love when you get a no, the rejection, learning to love the rejection. And because it's not really rejection, it's an energetic realignment.
Oh, nice reframe.
Yeah, that just happened right now.
You didn't have to own up to that as well. You could have rolled with that.
I'm like, wow, that just came to me. Let's insta that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like an energetic realignment, right? Because I can be on a call with somebody and they're thinking about working with me and it's not the right time for them, or it's outside their budget or whatever. That is, for them, it might be a not right now, but then I get to check in too. Like, this is my opportunity to decide whether or not I want to take on this client, this customer, and whether or not this is somebody who I want to work with. So it's empowering on both ends to have that conversation and not be attached to what the outcome is, and realize that if the person on the phone with me right now is saying no, that's an opportunity for somebody else to say yes.
That's so powerful. I had 2, not big no's, but 2 things which I thought were going to come off last month or the month before. And I kind of thought, okay, that will probably be this kind of revenue. And they ended up not coming off because it wasn't the right time for the people involved. And things took off in a completely different way on a much bigger scale because that opportunity was created and I wasn't attached to that yes or no. So I totally see that.
Yeah, and it saves time. Like the sooner you can get to that no. So if I'm on a sales call or whatever you call them, discovery call, strategy call, or somebody's interested in working with me and I know that they're not the right fit for my program, I'll be really upfront about that and let them know, because it saves time, it saves energy.
Yeah.
It closes the loop. The worst thing that you can have is somebody out there circulating in non-decision mode. So for me, my goal for anybody who gets on the call with me is not about working with me. It's about helping them make a decision about what's best for them and not having them get caught in a place of indecisiveness and not having me locked up in their energy of indecisiveness.
And also, while that kind of open loop is going on, there's that energetic imprint, isn't there, as well, of decision, of, you're still attached to that potential thing until it's been closed.
Yeah, it's just out there. It's lingering. It's like an open energy loop.
It's like when the writers of like a massive Netflix drama are still writing the next few series and we should have ended it ages ago.
So learning to love the no, and that there's a beauty there, and that there's still a lesson to be learned. There's still a yes, whether it opens the door for something else or it opens the door for a lesson learned or something, to really not fear that and to really not have attachment to it one way or the other.
Yeah. So no is still a yes. I love that. It's a yes in a different direction, isn't it?
Yeah. So those were my 8 lessons that I learned this year. And what I guess I would like the listeners, all of you, to do with this information is, one, I'd like you to pick one thing that I learned that resonates with you and check in around it. Is this something that you need to learn? Is this something you've already learned? What is your experience with this lesson? I would also love for you to take a few moments and think about the lessons that you learned this year and share them with me, and find me, the Bold Leadership Revolution on Facebook or at the Tara Newman on Instagram. You can email me, tara@taranewmancoaching.com, and let me know your thoughts around this episode. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to really engage with all of you after these episodes are released and to continue the conversation in other places. And this is our last episode of the season. So this is wrapping season 1. We will be back with season 2 in February.
Exciting stuff.
So when this is airing, it's going to be the end of December, and we are going to be taking a 1-month break. There may be some little content blips that come out in between, but we're not guaranteeing anything. But we will be back in February for season 2. And season 2 is largely going to be focused around leading with money.
It's a juicy one. And guys, if you haven't already downloaded the notes from each show, there's some notes that you can use for every single show to take action. So you can click the link on the podcast link. It'll also show up in iTunes. You can download the notes for free and you can print them out for each episode and really take action, because that is where you get incredible value from listening to the episodes and also applying through your own experience.
All right, everybody, have a great end of the year, and we'll see you back here in 2018.
Yay, see you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Bold Leadership Revolution podcast. This episode has ended, but our work continues online. Head over to theboldleadershiprevolution.com, where you'll find links to any resources mentioned in today's episode, along with other valuable tips and information that will help you lead bold. That's theboldleadershiprevolution.com.